بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وبعد. It's a normal human practice that if I do not know something, I reach out to people who know that thing better than I. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. The Quran is rather emphatic about وَلَا تَخْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. When you do not have knowledge about a particular thing, do not pursue it. Rather, get advice from those who know what is best. This advice that Allah imparts to us is applicable in things that are both religious as well as secular. I just graduated from high school, I'm considering college. What should I major in? What should I study? What will be my preoccupation? What will be my source of income? Obviously, I'm going to go around and attend different workshops, speak to specialists and say, oh, I'm looking into the medical field. Should I study medicine or not? Oh, I'm looking into IT. Should I study or not? I'm going to go to the right people and I'm going to ask them for that advice. So even in secular affairs, it's normal to seek advice from people. Not only is it normal, it is something highly encouraged. Islam is the same but to a greater extent. When it comes down to the decisions that I'm going to make. Okay, I want to buy something, I want to sell something, I want to eat something, I want to wear something, I want to go do something. I need to make mashwara, I need to consult people who have the right training in those areas. This is a very important concept for us to remember. The idea of mashwara. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Sahaba by saying that if you were to put into one word their affairs, shura baynahum, it is mutual consultation. Sometimes we feel to ourselves that as, someone who is educated in a particular area, I don't need anyone else's thought on this. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ, consult one another. So the topic of mashwara, the topic of consultation is very important and important from different perspectives. Number one, we're encouraged to do mashwara, but the question is, with whom do I do mashwara? Number two, what are the adab of mashwara for the person seeking the mashwara, but on the other hand, the person who's giving the mashwara? Because in different points in our lives, people are going to come to us. If I'm an expert in family counseling, or if I'm an expert in a particular area of IT or medicine or law, people are going to come and ask me for advice. Let's say I'm an attorney and somebody comes to me for advice on a legal matter. So they're coming to me, what are the adab, what are the etiquettes that I need to have in my life when I give this advice? Remember, mashwara isn't always with ulama and muftis and qaris and big scholars. Sometimes I will have someone come to me and ask me mashwara as well. So let's break this down. Three things. Number one, with whom do I make mashwara? Number two, if I'm the one seeking the mashwara, what are certain guidelines for me? And number three, if I'm giving the consultation, what are certain guidelines for me? So the first is, with whom do I make mashwara? It goes without saying that the purpose of consultation is so that I can get help on a matter, not so that I can reiterate, reify what I already have in my mind. For instance, this happens very often. I'll just give you a hypothetical scenario. I'm not talking about halal or haram here, but I'll just give you an example. I see there's a huge craze about cryptocurrency, and then I jump onto it. And I start investing, I start buying, I'm buying, selling, all of that stuff. Then after some time, I'm like, okay, you know what? It's time for me to make mashwara if I should do this or not. But in my mind, I've already made a profit. And I already have a conflict of interest. I already have a bias of what I want to do. So after 3-4 months, now I'm going to ask consultation. I'm going to look for the people who are going to give me advice, what I want to hear. For true mashwara, I need to go to an objective party without looking to hear what I want to hear, but hearing what I need to hear. And that is very tough advice. Whether it's Islamic or secular, whatever the case is. For instance, I just bought my home. And I already see, it's depreciating or appreciating value. And now I'm thinking to myself, is this a good idea or not? just so I could soothe my conscience, I'm going to go to those people who are going to say, yeah, but don't worry about it, it was a really good idea. I want people to pamper me so I don't feel bad about my decision. But if I really want to improve, what do? I need to go to those people who have my good interest at heart, and they're going to give me the advice that I need. The same applies to Islamic rulings as well. Post fact, after everything is done and dusted, I shouldn't be going to someone and say, okay, you know what, I just bought this, I just did this, I'm done with it, what do you think? That's not mashwara, that's not consultation, that's ikhbar, that's informing somebody of what happened, right? The food's already gone off, and I say, oh, by the way, how do I cook? No, it's done and dusted. So the first thing is, when we want mashwara, we need sincerity. This applies to everyone, including myself. Whenever we do mashwara for anything, mashwara as a family, mashwara as, I want to start a new business, I want to start a new job, I want to go study Islam, I want to buy something. Whatever mashwara I seek, I need sincerity. Number two, very important, are the adab. What are the etiquettes of mashwara? So if I'm the person who seeks counsel, let's say for instance, there's a medical issue, I have some type of pain or aches, and in the masjid there's a brother who's a doctor, and I'm going to get some mashwara from him. I'm giving a secular example. I'm going to the brother to get some mashwara from him, that okay, I'm feeling these pains, I'm feeling these aches, can you please help me? When I go to seek mashwara from someone, just 3 basic guidelines, according to the sunnah, 3 very basic guidelines. Number 1, respect the person from whom you're getting mashwara. There's a difference between paid consultation. If I'm paying an attorney for legal advice, I have the right to demand because I'm paying for my services. But if I'm going to someone for help and they're coming with their own free time, I should respect their time and be very understanding of that. Sometimes we ask people for their ideas, their consultation, and we're very pushy. And we get upset and we start to, very push down on what we think. Number 1. Number 2, when we seek advice, we should seek advice, again, in a way that is honest. For instance, if I am having a quarrel with my spouse, or I'm having a misunderstanding with my son, and I go to someone and I'm getting their advice on, okay, you know what? I want your help. Me and my spouse, we're having this issue. Please give me some advice. When I'm going to tell that person the situation, I can't be one-sided. I have to paint the entire picture. I can't say, oh, you know what, I just randomly woke up one morning and my wife just started yelling at me. Is that really the truth? Or did something happen? Is there a whole background behind it? And number 3, whenever I go to seek advice from someone, I should always remember, and this is important, advice is not binding. Advice is not binding. I take that advice. If I find it beneficial in my life, I will practice on it. If I don't practice on it, no hard feelings. So that's me seeking advice. The hadith that we're going to be covering today teaches us the adab of the person who is giving advice. So somebody comes to me and says, oh, you know what, brother, sheikh, I have this issue. I want your thoughts on this. We're having this problem, me and my spouse. I need your help. Or I'm having this financial issue. I want to know, is it halal or haram? And they're coming to me. Or if somebody comes to you, what are certain advices? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says over here, وَمَنِ اسْتَشَارَ أَخُوهُ الْمُسْلِمِ فَأَشَارَ عَلَيْهِ بِغَيْرِ رُشْدٍ فَقَدْ خَانَهُ. The hadith that we're doing today, the first adab, the first guideline, if somebody comes to me for advice, if I give insincere advice, I am being treacherous. What do I mean by giving insincere advice? Sometimes somebody will come to me, to give you a hypothetical example. Somebody in my locality is selling a home. I'm interested in buying that house. Now, it so happens that somebody else is interested in buying that house, and they don't know that I want to buy it, and they come to me, and they said, brother, there's a nice house in your neighborhood, I'm interested in buying it, can you please tell me what you think about it? Now, in my mind, I already want that house. So if I deliberately lie to him and I say, yeah, you know what, you shouldn't get that house, there's a lot of crime, or the house is dilapidated, there's something wrong with the sewage, there's something wrong with the pipes, don't get it. فَقَدْ خَانَهُ. You will be considered a kha'in, khiyanat, treacherous person in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, I can recuse myself and say, brother, honestly, I would rather not speak about it for whatever reason. But do not give false advice. Do not give wrong advice. Sometimes somebody comes to me and I'm busy. I don't have time. And they're like, oh, brother, you know what? I just wanted to quickly know, you're a doctor. And I just want to know advice on this. And I don't have time. So I just say, yeah, just do this, take this medicine, take this pill. Or if I'm an attorney and I don't have to, like, yeah, just do this, do that. Instead of me giving bad advice, I should simply say, brother, I'm very busy right now. Inshallah, we'll talk another time. If we give bad and wrong advice, Allah will hold us accountable. That's the first guideline. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam teaches us here. فَقَدْ خَانَهُ. The person is a kha'in. And number two, there's a hadith Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, Al-mustasharu mu'taman. Al-mustasharu mu'taman. When somebody confides in me, it is absolute amana. I have no right to go and discuss it with anyone else, my mom, my brother, my sister, my wife. Nobody has a right to know about that conversation. Oftentimes we're so relaxed. Somebody comes to me and says, yeah, you know what, lately it's been very tough. Me and my wife, we've been arguing. You know, we haven't been speaking to each other for 2-3 weeks. I just casually say that to somebody. Now I go home, that person goes home, and says to herself, oh yeah, by the way, did you hear Fulan Bhai or this person or that Bhabi, this person, you know, they're all, this is happening, that. When the person says something and is asking advice, or, you know, sometimes people don't even ask advice, they just want somebody to hear them out. I have no right to disclose that information. That is pure amana. And if I breach that amana, again, I am kha'in in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, 2 advices so far. Number 1, بِغَيْرِ رُشْدٍ. Do not give advice that is wrong. If there's a conflict of interest, remain silent. If you don't have time, say come another time. But to give false advice, to give false guidance is absolutely haram. Number 2, amana. It's trust. If somebody trusts me with their private matter, I have zero right to go and tell someone else. In one hadith it comes, when somebody speaks to you and they're looking around, right? If somebody comes and speaks to you and they're looking around, they don't even need to say to you, brother, don't tell anybody. Just their demeanor of looking around is enough evidence that I have to take what they're saying as amana. Unfortunately, one of the bad cultures that we have, and we've inculcated it into our lives too often, is our tongues are so moist with everyone's dirty laundry. It's just a topic of, it's like the talk of town. We sit down, we have to talk about somebody else. This person, that person, did you hear about him? Did you hear about her? Did you see what happened here? Oh, I saw this, I saw that. And it's worse when there's trust involved. So if somebody comes to me with seeking advice, I have no right. Let's say for instance, just to give another common example, I'm looking to study somewhere. And I go to someone and I say, oh yeah, by the way, you know, I want to study this. What is your thought? Then I go back home like, oh yeah, by the way, he's going to go study this degree or that degree. If I don't have permission, I shouldn't speak. The last guideline, if I am giving advice, I have to give advice with knowledge, not without knowledge. That's the last point, and very important. Especially those of us who are affiliated with the masjid. Sometimes people in our family, sometimes people in our circles, they think because we're coming to the masjid that perhaps we have more knowledge or we're qualified. And somebody will come to me and say, oh, bhai, you know, I saw, mashallah, you know, you have a dhari, you have a beard, you have your clothing particular way, whatnot. And, you know, they have nothing to do with Islam, but they come in, we're just coming for dinner. And they say, oh, by the way, you know, what's the ruling of this or what's the ruling of that? And now I put on my garb of the big scholar and I'll say, yeah, you know what, this is halal or that is haram, right? But what's my qualification? I come to pray salah in the masjid. That does not give me the right to talk about the deen of what's halal and what's haram. So when somebody comes to me for mashwara on that, I have no right to speak. And it's not only about deen, it's also about secular issues. Somebody comes to me and says, oh, by the way, I heard this about the vaccine. You know, I heard there's very adverse effects. Or now I'm going to give a whole list of, yeah, you know what, on YouTube I saw this thing. If you take the vaccine, this is going to happen to you. If I am not a qualified medical expert, why am I speaking? Yes, I have my personal views. I have my personal hesitation. I'm at ease to do what I want. But giving mashwara to somebody without knowledge, I have no right to do that, and on the day of judgment, I will be questioned for that. So in summary, mashwara is a very important part of our deen. 3 things we need to bear in mind. Number 1, with whom do we do mashwara? Number 2, when I ask the question, what are certain guidelines? And number 3, when I'm asked guidance, what are certain guidelines? Who do I ask mashwara? Only from the people who are qualified. And I ask mashwara to get the truth, not so I can hear what I want to hear. If I'm asking, let me be sincere in my question, let me paint the whole picture, and if I don't want to take the advice, it's fine. Nobody's obliging me to take that advice. Number 3, if I am giving advice, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tells us over here, make sure you give good advice. Don't give advice based on a conflict of interest. Number 2, your advice and whatever you hear is amana. Don't tell anybody else, you have no rights. And number 3, let me have knowledge about the subject I'm speaking about. Sometimes, I started reading some fatawa online, or I'm reading some books on history, or I'm doing X, Y, and Z. So now all of a sudden, people think I'm qualified and they're going to ask me, and I'll say, yes, the ruling on this mas'ala is halal, haram, makruh, this, that. Let me just ask someone else. Why am I in a position to try and convince them? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us to seek mashwara, because mashwara is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be careful with everyone's secrets and their trust. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us to ask those things that are beneficial for us in this life and the afterlife. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.